The wind carried no mercy on Christmas Eve. Jacob Brennan raised his lantern against the dark, checking the fence line one last time before the blizzard buried everything. That's when he saw it, a shape too still against the white. Not deer, not shadow. A woman's cloak, frost-crusted and torn. He moved fast, boots crunching through knee-deep snow. The lantern swung wild in his grip, throwing shadows across the pines. When he reached her, his breath caught. She lay face down, one arm stretched forward like she'd been reaching for something. Help, maybe, or hope. Jacob knelt, touched her shoulder. Ice clung to her hair. Her lips were blue. Fingers curled stiff. But when he pressed 2 fingers to her throat, he felt it a pulse, faint as a whisper. Thank God. He breathed. He didn't ask questions. Out here, you don't ask questions before you act. Cold kills faster than answers come. Jacob wrapped his coat around her, lifted her carefully. She weighed almost nothing, like the cold had already hollowed her out. The cabin glowed 50 yards ahead, lamplight bleeding through the window. His daughter Ivy stood in the doorway, small and wide-eyed, lamplight making a halo of her blonde hair. Papa! Her voice carried thin through the wind. Is she alive? She's fighting. Jacob called back. Open the door wide, darlin', and fetch every blanket we got. Ivy disappeared inside. Jacob carried the stranger up the porch steps. Through the threshold, heat hit him like a wall. The fire roared in the hearth. Ivy's doing smart girl, always thinking ahead. He laid the woman on the rug by the fire, as close to the flames as he dared. Her dress was torn at the hem, hands scratched and bloody. She'd been running through brush, running from something. Ivy appeared beside him, arms full of quilts. Papa, her hands are so cold. Then we warm 'em. Jacob pulled off the woman's frozen boots, wrapped her feet in wool. Fetch more wood, darlin', quick now. Ivy ran. Jacob worked fast, tucking blankets tight, rubbing circulation back into the woman's fingers. Her skin felt like wax, colorless and slack, but her chest rose and fell, shallow, but steady. The woman's eyes fluttered open, just for a second. She looked at Jacob's face, at the firelight dancing on the log walls, at Ivy returning with an armload of kindling. Her lips moved, shaping a word he couldn't hear. Then her eyes closed again. She's not dying, Jacob said, more to himself than Ivy. Not tonight. Not on Christmas Eve. He built up the fire until it roared. Outside, the blizzard screamed against the walls. Inside, 3 souls huddled by the light. 2 who lived there, and 1 who'd been delivered to their door like an answer to a prayer Jacob hadn't known he'd spoken. She woke to warmth. After 3 days of cold that ate through her bones, the heat felt like resurrection. A man sat near broad shoulders, weathered face, careful hands tending the fire. Not the men who'd chased her. Safe. Ada Harper tried to sit. Pain shot through her ankle and she gasped. The man turned, quick but gentle. Easy, ma'am. You've been through hell. His voice was low, steady, mountain voice, the kind that didn't waste words. He moved to her side, one hand supporting her back. She saw his face clearly now, 30-something, grief carved into the lines around his eyes, a wedding ring still on his finger. Where her throat felt like sandpaper. My cabin, Montana Territory, found you half frozen by my fence line. He reached for a tin cup, held it to her lips. Drink slow. The broth was warm, salty. Ada drank, then pulled back. Thank you. I'm Ada Harper. I'm a nurse. She stopped, remembering. The wagon. The men. Running. You don't need to explain tonight. The man set the cup down. Name's Jacob Brennan. That's my daughter Ivy. Ada looked up. A small girl peered down from a loft above, blonde braids framing a solemn face. 7, maybe 8 years old. Are you an angel? Ivy asked. Ada almost laughed, but the child's face was serious. No, sweetheart. Just a woman who got very lost. Papa prayed for help. Ivy said. Maybe you're the answer. Jacob's jaw tightened. Ivy, come down here. Miss Harper needs rest, not questions. The child climbed down the ladder, each step careful. She wore a faded nightgown, feet bare. When she reached the bottom, she walked straight to Ada and took her hand. I'm glad you didn't die, Ivy said simply. Something in Ada's chest cracked open. She squeezed the small hand. Me too. Jacob cleared his throat. Storm's too heavy. You'll stay till it breaks. It wasn't a question. I'll check your ankle. He moved with practiced efficiency, fingers gentle but sure, when he touched the swelling. Ada winced. Sprained, not broken. He wrapped it with strips of clean cloth. You've done this before. Ada said. My wife. Before she passed. His voice went flat. And my daughter. When she broke her arm last spring. The past tense sat heavy between them. Ada saw it now, the careful way he avoided looking at her too long. The empty space at the table. The wedding ring he still wore like armor. I don't know how to thank you. Mr. Brennan. You don't. He stood, moved back to the fire. A man does what's right, or he ain't much of a man. Mercy ain't a choice out here, Ada thought. It's what separates the living from the dead. Ivy climbed into her father's lap, tucked her head under his chin. Jacob held her automatically, his whole body softening. Ada watched them, father and daughter, wrapped in grief and love, surviving in this small, warm space while the world froze outside. She noticed the wedding ring again. Noticed how Jacob's eyes went distant when Ivy mentioned her mother. Noticed the way he sat between Ada and the door, even now. Protecting. Always protecting. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, Ada Harper realized she'd stumbled into someone else's carefully guarded sorrow. And somehow, she'd have to find a way to leave without making it worse. Ada woke before dawn. The cabin was dark except for embers glowing red in the hearth. Jacob slept by the fire, Ivy curled against his side like a small blonde comma. His arm circled her even in sleep. Ada Harper hadn't meant to intrude on anyone's grief. But the child's laughter the night before, soft, rare, like Jacob didn't hear it often, had broken something in her. She'd been running from loneliness. Maybe she'd run straight into more of it. She tried to shift, testing her ankle. It throbbed but held weight. Good. She could leave when the storm cleared. Wouldn't be a burden longer than necessary. Jacob's eyes opened. He saw her watching, sat up carefully so Ivy wouldn't wake. Morning. Morning. Ada pulled the quilt tighter. I can help. With breakfast. Whatever you need. You should rest. I'm a nurse. Mr. Brennan. Sitting still drives me mad. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Coffee, then, if you can stand. They moved through the small space quietly. Jacob showed her where things were coffee, skillet, the sourdough starter his wife had kept alive for 10 years. His hands hesitated on the jar. Sarah made bread every Sunday. He said, taught Ivy before he stopped. Set the jar down harder than he meant. Ada understood. Some mornings, the absence of the dead weighs more than their memory. They worked in silence. Ada sliced bread, Jacob fried eggs. When Ivy climbed down, yawning, she found them both at the stove like they'd been doing this for years. Miss Ada stayed. Ivy clapped her hands. Just till the weather clears, darlin'. Jacob set plates on the table after breakfast. Ivy brought Ada a small wooden frame. Inside, a woman smiled, dark hair, kind eyes, laugh lines deep as rivers. That's Mama. She died when I was 5. Ada's throat tightened. She was beautiful. Papa says she's with the angels now. Ivy looked at her father. But I think she gets lonely up there. Jacob's face went hard as stone. He stood abruptly. I'll check the stock. He grabbed his coat, walked out into the cold without another word, the door shut like punctuation. Ivy climbed into Ada's lap. Papa gets sad when we talk about Mama. He loved her very much. Ada smoothed the child's hair. Love doesn't just stop because someone's gone. Do you got anyone who died when my parents week when I was 16? Ada hadn't spoken about them in years. They were traveling to California. Wagon overturned crossing a river. So you're alone too. Ivy's small arms wrapped around Ada's neck. Like us. Ada held her. This child who'd lost her mother, who saw the shape of loneliness in others. Outside, she could see Jacob standing in the snow, staring at nothing. His shoulders were rigid, fists clenched at his sides. Can you stay till Christmas is really over? Ivy whispered. Please. Ada knew she should say no. Knew staying would only make leaving harder. But she looked at this child who'd been so careful with her father's grief, and at the man standing alone in the snow, and she couldn't. If your father says it's all right. When Jacob came back in, stomping snow from his boots, Ivy asked, Can Miss Ada stay a little longer? Papa, just till the trail's clear good? Jacob met Ada's eyes across the room. Something passed between them, understanding. Maybe. Or warning. Weather won't clear for days anyway. His voice was careful. You're welcome to stay. But his eyes said something else. I can't afford to need you. That afternoon, Ada mended Ivy's torn rag doll. She sat by the window, thread and needle moving in practiced rhythm. Ivy watched. Fascinated. Mama used to sew, she said quietly. Did she teach you? Ada asked. A little, before she got too tired. Jacob stood in the doorway, watching them. Ada saw it from the corner of her eye, the way his shoulders loosened, the way his breath caught when Ivy laughed at something Ada said, for just a moment. The grief stepped back. Then he turned and walked outside again. That night, after Ivy climbed to the loft. Ada sat by the fire. Jacob worked at his bench in the corner, whittling something from pine. They didn't speak. But the silence wasn't empty. Home ain't a place, Ada thought. It's the people you'd ride through hell to get back to. She'd been riding away from hell. But maybe she'd found something on the other side. Christmas morning came quiet that year. No church bells, no neighbors, just 3 souls in a cabin that had been too empty too long. Jacob Brennan watched the nurse Ada pour coffee like she'd been doing it for years. Like she belonged. The storm had passed. Blue skies stretched endless through the window. The kind of cold clear that meant hard freeze. Snow lay 4 feet deep in drifts. No one was traveling those trails for days yet. Merry Christmas. Papa. Ivy climbed down, still in her nightgown, carrying something wrapped in cloth. Jacob's chest tightened. He'd almost forgotten. Christmas. Used to mean something when Sarah was alive. Merry Christmas, darling. Ivy ran to Ada. I made you something. She unwrapped the cloth. Inside, a pine cone ornament, tied with red thread. Simple. Perfect. Ada's eyes went bright. It's beautiful. Ivy, thank you. So you remember us when you go... The words hung heavy. Jacob saw Ada's face shift something between gratitude and grief. I have something for you, too. Ada reached into her bag, pulled out a square of white cloth, hand-embroidered at the corner, small blue flowers. My mother made this, for brave girls who help people heal. Ivy took it like treasure. I'll keep it forever. Jacob cleared his throat. I got something for you too. Ivy. He pulled the wooden horse from behind his chair. He'd been carving it for weeks, every night after she slept. Painted mane, delicate legs, eyes that looked almost alive. Ivy gasped. Papa. It's perfect. She threw her arms around his neck. Jacob held her, breathing in the scent of her hair. When he looked up, Ada was watching. Her expression did something to his ribs. You have skilled hands, Mr. Brennan, Ada said quietly. Keeps me busy. He set Ivy down. Come on. Let's eat. Breakfast was bacon and the last of the eggs. Sourdough bread toasted dark. They ate together, Ivy chattering about the horse, about snow, about nothing important and everything that mattered. After, Ada insisted on washing dishes despite her ankle. Jacob dried. They worked side by side, close in the small space. Tell me about your wife, Ada said. Jacob's hands stilled. Why? Because Ivy needs to remember her, and you need to say her name out loud sometimes. He was quiet so long Ada thought he wouldn't answer. Then Sarah. Her name was Sarah. She was... He stopped, started again. Strong, brave. She could outshoot most men and bake bread that tasted like heaven. Had a laugh that made you want to laugh too, even if nothing was funny. She sounds wonderful. She was... Jacob set down the towel. She died giving birth. Baby didn't make it either. Just... His voice cracked. Just stopped, both of them. Ada's hand found his shoulder, gentle. I'm so sorry. 2 years now? He couldn't look at her. Some days I forget what her voice sounded like. Then I feel guilty for forgetting. Memory isn't betrayal. Jacob. He looked at her then. First time he'd heard her say his name. It sounded different in her mouth, softer. You're very patient with her, Ada continued. Not all men are. Some would have remarried by now, just to have someone else raise the child. She's all I got left of her mother. Jacob's voice was rough. Patience ain't hard when it's all you can give. A man's wealth ain't in his land, he thought. It's in the hearts that call his place home, that afternoon. Jacob taught Ada to split kindling. She was clumsy at first, favoring her bad ankle. He steadied her, hands on her shoulders. Swing down, not across, let the weight do the work. She tried again. The wood split clean. She laughed. Surprised. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same piece. Both froze. The air between them went electric charged with something neither wanted to name. Jacob pulled back. You got it now. He walked away, fast. Ada stood holding the axe, breathing hard. Inside, Ivy played with her wooden horse, making it gallop across the table. She sang something tuneless and happy. The sound hit Jacob in the chest. I forgot what her laughter sounded like. He realized. I forgot my own daughter's laughter. That night, Ada mentioned leaving. When the trail's clear, maybe 2, 3 days. Jacob's face closed like a door. Right, of course. He turned away before she could see his expression. But Ada felt the sudden cold between them anyway. Something had shifted during the day and neither of them knew how to name it. Outside, stars burned holes in the black sky. Inside, 3 people sat in separate silences, each wondering what would happen when morning came and the trails opened, and choices had to be made. The fever took her in the night. Jacob woke to the sound of her thrashing by the fire, skin burning, eyes unfocused. The cold had gotten deeper than he'd known, and now it wanted her back. Ada. He knelt beside her, touched her forehead. Heat radiated through his palm. Ivy, stay in the loft. His daughter's face appeared over the edge. Is Miss Ada sick? She'll be fine. Stay up there. He worked fast. Cool water from the bucket outside. Cloths pressed to her throat and wrists. Ada's eyes opened but didn't see him. She was somewhere else. Lost in fever. I have to keep moving. She mumbled. Can't stop. They'll find me. You're safe. Jacob whispered. I promise, you're safe. But she didn't hear. Her hand grabbed his shirt, pulled him close. Just want to stop running. Want to find home. Find home. Jacob's chest cracked open. He smoothed her hair back, fever damp and tangled. You're not running anymore. I got you. Hours passed. He stayed beside her, changing cloths, coaxing water past her lips. Ivy climbed down once, brought him coffee. She didn't speak, just sat nearby, small hands folded in her lap. Is she dying, like Mama did? Ivy's voice was tiny. No. Jacob's voice was iron. No, she's strong. She'll fight through. But privately. He wasn't sure. The fever burned too hot, too fast. He'd seen this before, cold that gets into the lungs, turns to pneumonia, kills quick if you don't fight back. He prayed. First real prayer since Sarah died. Don't take her, please. I know I don't deserve another chance, but she does. She's good, kind. She makes Ivy laugh again. Don't take her from us. He stopped, rewound the thought. From us. When had it become us? Dawn broke gray and thin through the window. Ada's breathing changed deeper, slower. The fever broke like a wave crashing, leaving her exhausted but clear. Her eyes opened, found his face. You stayed? Nowhere else to be. His voice was rough from not sleeping. She reached up, touched his cheek. Her hand was weak but steady. Thank you. Ivy climbed down, brought them both coffee. She sat on the floor between them, leaning against Jacob's knee. For a long moment, they stayed like that child as bridge between two wounded adults. Morning light crawling across the floor, the fire burning low and steady. I dreamed I was still running, Ada whispered. And then I heard your voice, telling me I was safe. You are safe. Jacob met her eyes. Long as you're here, you're safe. The words hung between them, meaning more than he'd intended. Ada heard it, understood. I'm sorry, she said. I've been nothing but trouble since I got here. You've been... He stopped. Started again. A lot of things. Trouble ain't one of them. Sometimes the bravest thing is to stay when every fear tells you to run. Jacob had been running for 2 years. Running from grief. From memory. From the possibility that life could still hold something good. But this woman, this stranger who'd nearly died on his land, had made him stop. Made him look at what he'd been avoiding. Ivy's laughter. Morning coffee. The warmth of another person's presence in a house that had been cold too long. Ada watched him across the firelight. Something passed between them, acknowledgement. Maybe. Or promise. But fear still held Jacob's tongue. And Ada was too weak to speak the thing they both felt, building like pressure behind a dam. So they sat in silence while the sun rose and Ivy played with her wooden horse, and the world outside stayed. Frozen, and nothing was decided, but everything had changed. Floyd Whitlock rode up like bad news on a good horse. Jacob saw him coming from the window and felt his chest tighten. The world outside had found them, and it was time for Ada Harper to leave. He met Floyd at the door, stepped onto the porch before the man could dismount. Morning. Jacob. Floyd was 60, weathered as old leather. Kind eyes that missed nothing. Heard you had company. Found a woman half frozen on my fence line Christmas Eve. Jacob's voice was careful. Been tending her till she could travel. That'd be Ada Harper. Town's been looking for her. Floyd tied his horse. Wagon party reported her missing 4 days ago. We organized a search, but the storm—" He shook his head. "Glad you found her. Mighty glad." Jacob's stomach dropped. "They're looking for her. Sent word yesterday when the trails opened. They'll send someone to collect her. Day or two, maybe." Inside, Ada appeared in the doorway. She'd heard. Jacob saw it in her face, resignation mixed with something else. Grief, maybe. "Mr. Whitlock." She nodded. "I'm grateful for the concern, but as you can see, I'm fine." "You were lucky." Floyd looked between them, reading something in the space neither would name. "Jacob here's a good man. Did right by you." "He did." Ada's voice went formal. "I'm very grateful for his hospitality." Hospitality. The word landed like a stone. Jacob felt himself pulling back, walls rising. Of course she had to leave. Of course she had people waiting. What had he thought? That she'd just stay forever in his small cabin, playing house with him and Ivy, all prepare to leave. Then Ada turned back inside. "Thank you again. Mr. Brennan." Mr. Brennan, not Jacob. The distance in her voice was deliberate. Ivy came running out. "Floyd, did you bring Penny candy?" "Not today. Little one." Floyd ruffled her hair. "But I brought news. Miss Ada's folks are coming for her." Ivy's face crumpled. "But she's staying. Papa said she could stay." "I said no such thing." Jacob's voice came out harder than he meant. "Miss Ada has a life. We can't keep her here." Ivy's eyes filled with tears. "But I want her to stay." "Ivy, that's enough." Jacob's hands clenched. "Go inside." The child ran, sobbing. Jacob heard her climb to the loft, heard the hitching breaths of her crying. His heart twisted, but he didn't move. Floyd studied him. "You did a good thing, Jacob. Real good thing." Any man would have done the same. The words felt hollow. After Floyd left, Jacob stood alone in the yard. Through the window, he saw Ada folding her few belongings. She moved with quiet dignity. No tears, no dramatics, just acceptance. She pulled out the embroidered handkerchief, the one she'd given Ivy, carried it up to the loft. He heard her speak softly to his daughter, heard Ivy's broken protest. "Keep it," Ada said. "I won't need it. And I want you to have something to remember me by." "I don't want to remember—" Ivy's voice was raw. "I want you to stay—" Silence. Then Ada climbing back down. She set the handkerchief on the table, smoothed it once, walked to the window, stared out at nothing. Jacob stayed outside. The cold bit through his shirt, but he welcomed it. Anything to freeze the ache spreading through his chest. He remembered Sarah's last words, her hand in his, so weak he barely felt it. "Promise me you'll live. Jacob, really live. Not just survive. Find joy again. For Ivy. For you." He'd nodded. Lied. He hadn't lived, just existed. Day after day, year after year, going through motions while his heart stayed buried with his wife. And now he'd almost let himself feel something again. Almost let himself hope. Fear makes a man smaller than he is. He thought, takes courage to stand full height. But courage felt impossible. Easier to let Ada leave. Easier to go back to the cold, familiar routine of survival. Inside. Ivy's crying had stopped. The cabin was quiet. Too quiet. Jacob looked at his hands. Hands that had held his dying wife. Hands that had buried a son who never drew breath. Hands that had carried a stranger from the snow and almost learned to reach for something new. He curled them into fists, walked to the barn, stayed there until dark. When he came back inside, Ada and Ivy were asleep. The handkerchief still lay on the table, lamplight making the embroidered flowers glow like small blue flames. Jacob picked it up, smoothed the fabric, remembered Ada's face when she'd given it to Ivy, remembered her hands on his shoulders, teaching him it wasn't betrayal to remember without guilt. He folded the handkerchief carefully, set it back down. Tomorrow, someone would come for her. Tomorrow. His cabin would go back to being what it had been before, warm enough to survive in, but too empty to call home. He sat by the fire, watching shadows dance on the walls, and finally admitted what he'd been avoiding for days. He didn't want her to go. The night before she left, Jacob Brennan finally understood what a coward feels like. It wasn't the cold he'd survived, or the loneliness he'd endured. It was this knowing what you need and being too afraid to ask for it. He sat at the table, hands wrapped around cold coffee, staring at nothing. Ivy slept fitfully in the loft. Ada stood by the window, lamplight casting her shadow long across the floor. Neither spoke. Then Ivy's voice came from above, small and broken. "Papa!" Jacob looked up. His daughter climbed down the ladder, face streaked with tears. She walked straight to him, put her small hands on his shoulders. "Mama wouldn't want us to be sad forever, Papa." His breath caught. "Ivy, Miss Ada makes you smile. I see it. You laugh when she's here." Ivy's voice trembled. "Mama told me before she died, she said you needed to be happy again. She made me promise to help you." Jacob's vision blurred. "Darling, it's not that simple." "Yes, it is." Ivy's hands tightened. "You tell her to stay. That's all. You just ask." She climbed back up the ladder, left him sitting there, gutted. Jacob closed his eyes, remembered Sarah's deathbed. The room too hot, air too thick, her hand barely squeezing his. "Promise me you'll live." Jacob. Really live. Not just survive. Find joy again. For Ivy. For you. Promise me. He'd promised. But he'd lied. 2 years he'd been a ghost, walking through days without seeing them, going through motions because stopping would mean facing the hole Sarah left. But Ada had made him see again, made him feel, made him remember what it meant to want something beyond just making it through another winter. Across the room, Ada whispered something. He almost missed it. She was praying. "If this is where I'm meant to be, show me a sign, please. If not," her voice broke, "give me strength to walk away from what I want." Jacob's heart stopped. She wants to stay. He stood, walked to his workbench, hands shaking, found the handkerchief Ivy had left there, smoothed it carefully. The blue flowers his daughter had treasured, the gift Ada had given freely, asking nothing in return. 2 years he'd been dead. Maybe it was time he tried breathing again. At dawn, he'd ask her, risk everything. Because Ivy was right, Sarah would want him to live. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Jacob watched them through the window, Ada's reflection visible in the glass beside his own. 2 shadows, separate but close. He turned, found her looking at him. "Ada." His voice came out rough. "Don't." She shook her head. "Please, if you're going to tell me goodbye, just let me leave in the morning. Don't make it harder." "What if I wasn't going to say goodbye?" She froze. "Jacob, what if I was going to ask you to stay?" The words hung between them, huge and fragile. Ada's eyes filled. "Why would you do that?" "Because," he struggled, "because Ivy laughs when you're here. Because the cabin doesn't feel empty anymore. Because I forgot what living felt like until you showed up half dead on my land and reminded me. A man's word is his bond," he thought, "but sometimes the bravest word is stay. I found something I didn't know I was looking for." Ada whispered, "This place. This life. You. Ivy. I found home. Jacob. And tomorrow I have to leave it. What if you didn't? She stared at him. You're asking me to stay. I'm asking. He stopped, started again. I'm asking if there's any part of you that could see staying here, with us, with me. Silence. Then Ada crossed the space between them, took his hands. Every part of me wants that, she said. Every single part. Relief flooded through him, so strong his knees almost buckled. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. Then stay. Please, stay. Dawn broke pink and gold through the window. They stood together, holding on, both afraid to let go in case the moment shattered. In the loft. Ivy stirred. They heard her sit up, heard the small gasp when she saw them. Papa! Hope trembled in her voice. Is Miss Ada staying? Jacob looked at Ada. She looked back, tears streaming down her face, smiling. Yeah, darling. He called up. She's staying. Ivy's whoop of joy echoed off the rafters. She scrambled down so fast she nearly fell, threw herself at them both. Jacob caught her, Ada's arms circling them both. You're really staying. Ivy pulled back, searching Ada's face. Forever. If your father will have me. Ada looked at Jacob. If you're sure. I've never been more sure of anything. His voice was steady now. Certain? Welcome home. Ada Harper. Welcome home. Outside. The sun climbed over the mountains, painting snow gold. Inside. 3 people held each other and cried and laughed and began finally to heal. Jacob Brennan had faced blizzards and loss and years of crushing loneliness, but nothing terrified him like the words he was about to say. Ada stood by the door, coat on, bag packed. Ready to walk out of their lives, he had one chance to ask her to stay. No, not ask. He'd already asked last night, in the dark, with fear making his voice shake. She'd already said yes. But Floyd's nephew was coming. The world outside was coming. And Jacob needed to make it real, make it clear to everyone, including himself, that Ada Harper wasn't leaving this cabin ever again. Wait. His voice came out steadier than he felt. Before anyone gets here, I need... Ada turned. Her eyes were red from crying, from lack of sleep, from hope she was afraid to hold too tight. I need you to understand something. Jacob stepped closer, pulled off his hat, held it in both hands like a shield. I can't let you go. Not because you're needed, I mean. You are. But... He stopped. This wasn't coming out right. He tried again. Because you're wanted, by Ivy, by me. Because this cabin's been a tomb for 2 years and you made it feel like a home again. Because I was half dead and you reminded me what living feels like. He met her eyes. I don't want to forget again. Ada's breath hitched. Then don't. Let me stay. Let me help you remember. Is that what you want? Really? I've been hoping you'd ask, praying you'd ask. Tears spilled over. I found what I was searching for here. Jacob, it's you. It's Ivy. It's this. She gestured around the cabin, the simple room with its stone hearth and rough-hewn table, the loft where Ivy slept, the windows looking out on endless snow and sky. Nothing fancy, nothing grand, just shelter, just home. I want to stay, Ada whispered, more than anything. Footsteps on the porch. Ivy burst through the door, still in her nightgown, hair wild from sleep. You can't leave. She threw herself at Ada. Please don't leave. Ada caught her, held her tight. I'm not leaving, sweet girl. I'm staying. Ivy pulled back, searching her face. Promise. Promise. The child's face split into a grin so wide it looked painful. She grabbed both their hands, jumped up and down. Mama sent her. Papa, I told you Mama sent her to us. Jacob's throat closed. Maybe she did. He thought. Maybe Sarah's last gift was this a second chance. A way forward. Permission to be happy again. The sound of hoofbeats outside. Floyd's nephew arriving. Ready to escort Ada back to town. Jacob walked to the door. Opened it. Young Tom Whitlock sat his horse easy, tipping his hat. "Morning, Mr. Brennan. Come for Miss Harper." "She ain't going." Jacob's voice was flat, certain. Tom blinked. "Sir, she's staying. With us. Tell the wagon party she's found where she belongs." Tom looked past Jacob, saw Ada and Ivy holding hands, saw the way Ada's whole face glowed. He grinned. "Yes, sir, I'll pass the word." He touched his hat brim. "Congratulations, Miss Harper. You found yourself a good man." "I know," Ada said softly, after Tom rode off. Jacob closed the door, stood there, back to them, breathing hard. It was real now. Witnessed. No taking it back. He turned. Ada watched him. Questions in her eyes. Jacob walked to the old chest by his bed, knelt, opened it. Inside, carefully folded. Was Sarah's wedding quilt the one she'd sewn before they married? Every stitch a promise. Every square a prayer for their life together. He lifted it carefully. Stood. Walked to Ada. This was Sarah's. His voice was rough. Her wedding quilt. The only thing of hers I kept out. He paused. "I want you to have it." Ada's hand flew to her mouth. "Jacob, I can't." "Yes, you can." He draped it over her shoulders. The weight of it. The warmth. "Welcome home, Ada Harper. Welcome home." She broke then, sobbed into her hands. Ivy wrapped arms around her waist, crying too. Jacob pulled them both close, the quilt around all three of them, and felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Peace. Love's like a good horse, he thought. You don't find it by looking. It finds you when you're ready to ride. Outside. The sun climbed higher. Snow sparkled like diamonds. Mountains stood eternal and indifferent and beautiful. And inside the cabin, 3 people who'd been alone too long held each other and began the slow, sacred work of becoming a family. Spring came slow to the Montana hills, but it came. Snow melted into streams, green pushed through brown earth, and the cabin that had been a tomb became a home. Ada Harper had found her place, and Jacob Brennan had found his heart again. 6 weeks after Christmas, the world was unrecognizable. Not the land was the same. Mountains and sky and endless wind. But everything inside the fence line had changed. Ada saw patients 3 days a week now, riding out to homesteads and settlements with her medical bag, always coming home before dark. The community had accepted her quickly, Jacob Brennan's woman, they called her, and she didn't correct them. Soon enough, it would be true in more than just living arrangements. Mornings. She woke to coffee already brewing. Jacob up before dawn like always. But now he waited for her. They'd sit together, watching the sun rise, not needing words. Ivy called her Mama Ada. It had started natural as breathing. The 3rd morning after Ada stayed, Jacob had tensed, waiting for Ada to correct her. But Ada just smiled, kissed the child's forehead, said, "Good morning, sweet girl." Now it was routine. "Mama Ada, pass the biscuits." "Mama Ada. Can you braid my hair, Mama Ada? Tell the story about when Papa found you in the snow." That story had become legend. Ivy insisted on hearing it every week. How the blizzard brought them together. How Papa carried her through the snow like a hero. How Christmas Eve was the night their family started. This morning. Ada and Ivy knelt in the garden plot behind the cabin, planting seeds, beans, carrots, squash, and flowers lupine and columbine. Wild roses Ada had dug up from the hillside. "Why flowers?" Ivy asked, patting dirt around a seedling. "We can't eat those." "Because beauty matters too." Ada sat back on her heels, wiping sweat from her forehead. Your mama taught me that. You never met Mama. No, but your papa told me about her. How she planted flowers every spring, even when money was tight. How she said a house without flowers isn't a home, just a place to survive. Ivy considered this. I think Mama would like you. I hope so. Ada's throat tightened. I think she'd be glad you're happy again. They worked in comfortable silence. Behind them, Jacob stood on the porch, watching. He'd been watching a lot lately. Not suspicious, just amazed. Like he couldn't quite believe this was his life now. He'd visited Sarah's grave yesterday. First time since Ada stayed. Knelt in the grass, laid wildflowers on the stone. I'm living again. Sarah, he'd said out loud, not caring if anyone heard. Like you asked. She's good to us. Good for us. I think you'd like her. He paused. I think you sent her to me. Thank you. Thank you for setting me free. He'd cried. Not sad tears release. Permission. Peace. Now he walked down from the porch, joined them in the garden. Need help? Almost done. Ada smiled up at him. That smile still hit him like sunrise. Though you could fetch more water. While he worked the pump, Ada and Ivy finished planting. The child chattered about her wooden horse, about the family of rabbits living under the porch, about nothing important and everything that mattered. When Jacob came back, bucket sloshing, he found them sitting on the grass, Ada's arm around Ivy. Both had dirt on their faces, joy in their eyes. We're planting our future, Ivy announced. Mama Ada said so. Did she now? Jacob set the bucket down, sat beside them. 3 people in a row, backs against the cabin wall, looking out at land that had seen too much sorrow and was learning joy again. In a few months, this'll all be green, Ada said softly. Vegetables we can eat, flowers just to look at. Proof that winter doesn't last forever. Jacob's hand found hers, squeezed. Thank you. For what? For staying. For making this feel like home again. The land teaches you, he thought. Sometimes you gotta survive winter before you earn the spring. That evening, after Ivy fell asleep, Jacob and Ada sat on the porch. Stars spread overhead like spilled salt. Lamplight glowed warm behind them, making their shadows long and close. I've been working on something, Jacob said. He pulled a small wooden box from his pocket, set it on the table between them. His hands shook. Ada stared at it. Jacob, I'm not asking yet. His voice was rough. Not till summer. Want to do it right. But I wanted you to know. He opened the box. Inside, a simple gold band. I want you to be my wife. Really my wife. Not just the woman living in my house, but my partner, my love, Ivy's mother. Ada's vision blurred. You're sure, never been more sure of anything. He took her hand. You came into my life in a blizzard and taught me how to feel again, how to hope. I want to spend the rest of my life learning from you. She leaned into him, his arm coming around her shoulders. They sat like that, wrapped together, while the stars wheeled overhead and the mountains stood witness. Yes, she whispered. When you ask this summer, the answer's yes. Inside, they heard Ivy stir, call out softly. Ada rose, went to her. Jacob watched through the window, his daughter reaching for Ada. Ada smoothing her hair, both of them illuminated by lamplight. Family. The cold had brought her to them, dragged through snow by fate or providence or answered prayer. But it was warmth that made her stay. The warmth of a child's laughter. The warmth of a man learning to love again. The warmth of a family. Found in the last place any of them expected. Out here. Mercy arrived quiet, but its echoes lasted forever. Jacob stood, walked inside, closed the door against the night. The 3 of them were together now, past and present and future woven tight as Sarah's quilt. Home. Finally. impossibly, beautifully home.